Rocks Pirates were a legendary and powerful pirate crew that sailed the seas until their defeat 38 years before the current storyline. They were led by Rocks D. Xebec and considered to be the most dangerous and strongest pirate crew of their time. They ruled the seas before the rise of Gold Roger and his crew. The Rocks Pirates were an extremely powerful crew with amazing potential and were regarded as a threat to the entire world. They were without a doubt the strongest pirate crew of their time. The crew strength at the time made them the most threatening organization to the world government, so the government decided to cover up their actions. Aiming to become the strongest military force in the world, they had at least 3 of the 4 future emperors. Eventually, it took the combined strength of Gold Roger and Monkey D. Garp to defeat them. At some point in the past, the crew was formed on Hakino-su. They would go on to become the strongest crew of their time, to the point of threatening the world government itself. 38 years ago, they attacked several world nobles and their slaves on God Valley, causing Vice Admiral Monkey D. Garp to team up with the then future Pirate King, Gold Roger, and defeat them for good, earning Garp the title of Hero of the Marines. Due to Rock's quest for domination that led him to dabble in forbidden studies that the government covered up, along with the crew's lack of camaraderie causing them to rarely speak of their time together, the Rocks Pirates became relatively unknown to the next generation. 5 years later, the former members would go on to form their own crews. Rocks Pirates hierarchy starts with its captain. Who is Rocks D. Xebec? Rocks D. Xebec, commonly known simply as Rocks, was the captain of the Rocks Pirates. He was prominent 40 years ago, before the Pirate King Gold Roger came into power. Based on stories of his exploits, Rocks appeared to be an incredibly vicious and ambitious man, having no care as to who he attacked as long as he could garner power for himself and leading his crew to destroy whomever interfered with his ambitions. He was also quite fearless and indiscriminately ruthless, as he had no issue with killing world nobles or their slaves if it suited his wishes. Rock's dream was to become the king of the world, Sekai no O, and he attacked many locations and left mass destruction in his wake to assert his dominance. He was also very curious about subjects that the world government had kept hidden, resulting in him dabbling in those subjects. Although Rock's individual strength and abilities are unknown, he was well reputed for presiding over a crew of extremely powerful pirates with clashing personalities and a lack of camaraderie, indicating that he was an extremely powerful and charismatic individual and possibly the strongest person of his time. Many of these people would go on to make big names for themselves. Edward Newgate, Charlotte Linlin, and Kaido even became emperors in the New World. Kaido in particular seems to equate Xebec with other notable figures that have been able to stand against him, such as Shanks and Kojiki Oden, further implying Xebec's power. Xebec was considered to be the most formidable rival of the Pirate King, Gold Roger, even more so than his then subordinate Whitebeard would come to be. He was so fearsome, it took both Roger and Monkey D. Garp working together to finally defeat him. Rock's defeat was also what caused Garp to become a legend and to be known as the Hero of the Marines, showing how much of a threat that the world government considered him to be. He was also a very intelligent and knowledgeable man as he studied many subjects that were considered taboo and was able to unravel many of the world government's secrets, which led the government to decide to erase his name from history. Rocks is seen wielding a sword during the fight with Roger and Garp in God Valley. Edward Newgate, more commonly known as Whitebeard, was the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates and widely known as the strongest man in the world and the man closest to One Piece after Gold Roger's death. Before forming his own crew, he was a member of the legendary Rocks Pirates and later in life he became a member of the 4 emperors that rule over the New World, before his death in the Battle of Marineford. After his home country, Sphinx, became too poor to be a member nation of the world government, Newgate became an orphan. He became a pirate at an early age and supported his village with the money and resources he gained. Before forming the Whitebeard Pirates, he was just another crew member in another crew going by his real name Newgate, and that he was not interested in treasure, but instead wanted a family. Sometime after this, At least 40 years ago he joined the Rocks Pirates, but eventually left after the God Valley incident, 38 years ago, and at least 33 years ago, he would go on to form his own pirate crew, the Whitebeard Pirates. Odin and Whitebeard clash. 30 years ago, Whitebeard and his crew were shipwrecked at Wano country. They encountered Kojiki Odin and he asked to join his crew after a brief clash with Whitebeard. Afterwards, Whitebeard and his crew had a feast with Odin and his retainers. Odin kept asking to join only to be turned down. 2 weeks later, the Whitebeard pirates tried to leave Odin behind, but he caught up to them and held onto a chain he attached to the ship. Izzo also held onto Odin and got dragged away with him. After pulling Izzo up onto the ship, Whitebeard gave Odin a test. If he could hold onto the chain for 3 days, he would be allowed into the crew. Just when Odin only had 10 minutes left, he heard a woman in trouble and let go, drifting to an island. On the next day, Whitebeard found Odin and a woman named Toki confronted by Karma and his crew. Whitebeard defeated Karma and finally allowed Odin to join his crew. Inuarashi and Nekomamushi, who had stowed away on Whitebeard's ship, joined the crew as well. 2 years after Odin joined, Whitebeard decided to divide his crew into divisions and appointed Odin as commander of the 2nd division. Sometime later, he met Marshal D. Teach and granted his request to join the Whitebeard pirates. Around 2 years later, the Whitebeard pirates arrived at an island and noticed a commotion that frightened even the animals. After Odin confronted the Roger pirates and got blown away by Roger, Whitebeard and Roger clashed. The two crews battled for 3 days. After the battle, the crews formed a truce and exchanged gifts. Roger told Odin and Whitebeard about his intention to reach the final island in the Grand Line and asked to borrow Odin for a year. Though Whitebeard did not fully agree, Odin decided to join Roger. Whitebeard expressed his annoyance after Odin parted ways with his crew. He later found out that Inuarashi and Nekomamushi followed Odin as well. In his prime, Whitebeard was a rival to Gold Roger, and following Roger's death, was widely recognized as the strongest man in the world, a fact complemented by having the highest active bounty whilst alive, and the second highest bounty of any pirate in history. Edward Newgate was a cheerful and carefree person during his younger years, prior to commanding his own ship and becoming known as Whitebeard. Due to being an orphan who grew up in poverty, Newgate had a strong desire for a family, which he saw as the greatest treasure one could have. He was not ashamed of this wish, which was considered strange and humorous among his pirate peers. His reign on the sea, reputation, and foreboding power made him seemingly overconfident and fearless. In initial appearances, he seemed unable to see any cause for alarm on any decision he made and refused all advice given to him, such as his nurse telling him not to drink heavily or Shanks warning him of Blackbeard. However, he was much more thoughtful than he initially appeared to be. Actions that initially seemed to be the result of thoughtless, headstrong bravado actually had strong reasons behind them. His loud declaration that Fishman Island belonged to him freed the island from all pirates and slavery, and his insistence that Blackbeard be punished was merely a cover for Ace, who had set out after him against Whitebeard's wishes. Whitebeard was one of the most powerful and influential pirates of his generation. He garnered the title Strongest Man in the World before even the late pirate king Gold Roger's death and was one of the world's few to ever match Roger in one-on-one combat. I am only one man with one heart, call me a demon, call me a monster, but I can't be the strongest forever. Whitebeard's response to his status as the strongest man in the world. After Roger's death, Whitebeard became one of the 4 emperors, the 4 most formidable pirates ruling the latter half of the Grand Line and the biggest pirate threats to the world government. Prior to his own passing, Whitebeard held not only the highest bounty among those 4, but the second highest in recorded history, at over 5 billion, only behind Roger's own. Whitebeard was given the title of the strongest man in the world for his physical power, which is far superior to even a giant. During the Marineford War, Whitebeard completely overpowered vast numbers of strong marine officers and giants with tremendous physical might, such as Vice Admiral Rance, with only one hand and supplemented by his devil fruit powers. Whitebeard blocked a two-handed downward swing from the giant Vice Admiral John Giant with only one hand on his naginata, extinguished the flames of one of Akainu's molten rocks with just a single breath, and prevented a massive paddle ship from advancing using only one hand. He could jump to great heights to attack large opponents, such as John Giant. Besides his formidable power, Whitebeard was a brilliant leader and an incredibly skilled military strategist, a match for former Fleet Admiral Sengoku, one renowned as the resourceful general for his famed acumen on the field of battle. The Emperor's tactical prowess was demonstrated when he saw through Sengoku's deliberate leak of information regarding a change of schedule for Ace's execution, and when he foresaw the pacifists' arrival at Marineford and scattered the pirates so that they would not be routed by the cyborgs. Whitebeard ate the Gura Gura no Mi, a paramecia-type devil fruit that allowed him to cause quakes and generate powerful shock waves. This power is considered to be the strongest devil fruit power within the paramecia class. According to Sengoku, Whitebeard had the power to destroy the world. With the power of this devil fruit, Whitebeard could create powerful shock waves by shattering the air like glass. These shock waves then would be redirected into the ground, resulting in earthquakes and, if under the seafloor, tsunamis. He could create these shock waves in the air, rendering airborne attacks ineffective. He could also use these shock waves to attack enemies, with either widespread or specific targets. Whitebeard's powers also allowed him to create a quake bubble around his hand or naginata to increase the power of his physical attacks, as well as manipulate the air with his hands to tilt the environment around him. He also used his naginata to slash the air, which caused a massive explosion and the collapse of a tower in Marineford. Whitebeard could also use these shockwaves to block physical attacks as well as non-physical attacks, making his devil fruit powers excellent for both offensive and defensive capabilities. Soon after Whitebeard's death, the power of the fruit was extracted by Blackbeard through unknown means. Whitebeard wielded a gigantic naginata called Murakomagari, one of the 12 supreme swords. He was immensely skilled with the blade even in old age. He could use Murakomagari to fight off countless powerful marines in Marineford, including marine admirals, and during his prime, he also clashed with Kojiki Oden, who was one of the strongest samurais of Wano. When he was a child, he had a much smaller and less well-crafted spear made up of a simple knife bound to a pole. After Whitebeard's death, it became a marking for his burial site, with his coat, a bouquet of flowers, and the crew's flag hanging from it. Whitebeard is one of the very small number of people in the world who can use all three types of haki. Whitebeard possessed House Hoku haki. During his initial encounter with Kojiki Oden 30 years ago, their sudden clash created a notable effect similar to lightning and released a large burst. His House Hoku haki was displayed to a far greater extent against his longtime rival, Gold Roger. Their clashing House Hoku haki cracked the air, creating an effect akin to lightning and generating a shockwave larger than the island, repelling the giant trees around them alongside the crewmates of the Roger and Whitebeard pirates and nearly capsizing the Moby Dick. During the Marineford War, he was on the verge of using it against some of the world government's executioners to protect poor Gas d'Ace, but failed because of a sudden illness attack. Charlotte Linlin, better known as Big Mom, is the captain of the Big Mom Pirates and one of the 4 emperors ruling over the New World, as the only female member. She is the matriarch of the very large Charlotte family, which makes up the infrastructure of her crew. She also rules over Tato Land as its queen, seeking to form it into a utopia where all the world's races can live together in peace without experiencing discrimination or segregation. She and her crew have recently entered an alliance with fellow Emperor Kaido and his crew, the Beasts Pirates. Decades ago, before the formation of her own crew, Big Mom was also part of the legendary Rocks Pirates as one of its core members. Big Mom was the last of the 4 emperors to be named. Her epithet was first mentioned after the Battle of Marineford by Eustace Kidd and her real name by Papag on Fishman Island. As Carmel noted, Linlin was once a truly kind-hearted little girl. At 5 years old, Linlin tried to help people and even animals such as a bear and a wolf. However, her benevolent intentions ended up with dangerously violent results due to her monstrous strength and innocent simplicity, as she slapped a bear for devouring a wolf, accidentally killing it in the process. She also fractured a giant's bones while trying to smack a mosquito on him. Linlin even cried in genuine remorse after she accidentally killed the bear. She would also try to fix the appearances of her fellow orphans, which was actually attempting to tear off their racial features, being unable to understand the harm she was inflicting. This has carried over to her current situation, as while her dream of creating a country without discrimination is noble, she's willing to use violence and extortion to force people to follow her commands. While Linlin grew up normally as a kind and innocent little girl, she became more selfish and cruel over time, due to neither Carmel nor Streusen ever bothering to teach her any morals as well as taking advantage of her inhuman strength and naivete. Despite her age, Linlin has childish tendencies. After capturing Brooke, Linlin playfully patted and caressed the living skeleton and carried Brooke with her to sleep at night like a teddy bear and cried hysterically when she thought Brooke had died. When Carmel's photo was destroyed and shown to her, Linlin even broke down crying like a baby as she recalls the time when she was a 5-year-old girl, questioning why Carmel left her behind. She refers to herself with or, an aggressive masculine form of I, instead of the gender-neutral watashi, that most other females use. Big Mom suffers from an unknown disease dubbed as an eating disorder, kuawazure, known as hunger pangs in the Funimation subs, in which she becomes obsessively fixated on a sweet theme, and will go on a crazed rampage in search of the food she wants to eat. Inspired by Carmel's words, though she misunderstood them, Big Mom also desires to create a nation where all races can happily live together due to wanting a family comprised of individuals of all races that she can dine with at eye level with via Caesar Clown's gigantification research. Big Mom is very arrogant and proud of her status as an emperor and the queen of Tado land. Big Mom views herself superior and confident in her abilities that she doesn't want any outside help, as she berated her second son, Katakuri, for interfering when confronting Luffy. Big Mom also taunts her opponents and looks down on them, as when Luffy, his crew, and his allies were trying to escape, Big Mom called him out for being a coward for going back on his word to defeat her. As one of the 4 emperors, Big Mom is one of the 4 most powerful pirates in the world. As the only female member, this effectively makes Big Mom the single most powerful female pirate in the world. The 5 elders have stated that she is one of the few people capable of stopping Blackbeard. When her fellow emperor Kaido, known as the strongest creature in the world, threatened to kill her if she came to his territory, Big Mom simply invited him to try and said he would not be able to dissuade her. Even the Straw Hat Pirates recognized that she could crush them quickly and easily if they fought her recklessly. Through her strength as one of the most powerful pirates, Big Mom has managed to amass a very powerful crew, as well as several strong subordinates such as Jinbe, a fishman and former Shichibukai, and Capone Big, one of the members of the worst generation. She possesses considerable influence within the underworld as well, having connections to the Vinsmoke family, which leads the legendary Germa 66. Those who marry her children automatically become part of her crew. At the early age of 6, Linlin's first known bounty was belly. 50 million, implying that even at such a young age she was considered a significant threat. This bounty later increased to at least belly 500 million, and as one of the 4 emperors, her current bounty is belly 4,388 million. Big Mom has immense superhuman physical strength, demonstrated by her ability to climb tall buildings despite her massive size, throw punches with tremendous destructive power, and hurl Prometheus with extreme force using only a single arm. After the death of its previous owner, Carmel, through unknown means, Linlin acquired the powers of the Saru Saru no Mi, a paramecia-type devil fruit that allows her to manifest people's souls into an ethereal substance, so long as the intended victim feels fear. She can grab hold of the soul as it emerges from the victim's body and steal it from the victim, taking away their lifespan by an amount of her choosing. She can take a person's entire remaining lifespan, thus killing the victim, or she can just take part of that person's remaining lifespan, leaving their lifespan that much shorter. However, this ability has no effect on anyone who does not feel fear, as Big Mom was unable to take away Jinbe's lifespan because he was not afraid of her or of dying. She can then infuse stolen souls into non-living things, bringing them to life to be her servants. They are called homies. Nearly anything can be made into a homie, including plants, minerals, liquids, furniture, food, buildings, the air, and even light. Even animal can be turned into homies, anthropomorphizing them. When something is made into a homie, it gains human-like attributes, such as the ability to walk and talk. The only things that cannot be made into homies are people and corpses. She can also create incarnations of her own soul that will complete the task of collecting souls. Kaido of the Beasts, renowned as the world's straw homie model, Seiryo to Kaido, which put him in her debt, which she considered to be a lifelong one. Since becoming a pirate, he had been defeated 7 times and captured 18 times by the Marines and the other members of the 4 emperors. During said captures, Kaido was repeatedly tortured and given the death sentence 40 times. However, no method of execution was effective on him, and Kaido managed to sink 9 massive prison ships that held him. At least 33 years ago, Kaido started recruiting his crew. Kaido was not recognized as one of the top pirates in the world until around the time when Gold Roger was executed. He, along with Shanks, then joined Whitebeard and Big Mom among the ranks of the 4 emperors. After Kurozumai Orokai became shogun of Wano country, Kaido formed a partnership with him and supported his tyranny. 25 years ago, Kaido confronted Kojiki Oden at the shogun's castle after the latter attempted to kill Orokai. Kaido and Orokai then made a deal with Oden. If Oden danced naked in the flower capital once a week, citizens would be spared. They also promised to leave Wano in 5 years. Afterwards, Kaido flew over the shogun's castle in his dragon form. 23 years ago, Kaido fought with Gecko Moria in the Ringo region of Wano country and defeated him. Though the exact details of the battle are unknown, Moria lost his entire crew and was left warped and shattered from the experience, holding a grudge against Kaido to this day. At some point around this time, Kaido's daughter Yamato told him that they wanted to be Oden, and Kaido beat them in response. 20 years ago, when Oden and his 9 retainers were on their way to Onigashima, Kaido and his crew confronted them in the Udon region. In the ensuing battle, Oden managed to wound Kaido. However, Kaido knocked Oden unconscious when Oden was distracted by Kurozumai Higurashi, who had impersonated a kidnapped Momonosuke. Sometime after the battle, Kaido killed Higurashi for her interference. On the day of Oden's execution, Kaido joined Orokai in witnessing the execution. Oden then made a deal with Kaido to let those who survived the execution go free, and Kaido gave him an hour. Kaido was amused to watch Oden as the latter endured standing in a pot of boiling oil while holding his retainers with a board. Although Oden successfully survived 1 hour in the boiling pot, Kaido and Orokai decided to execute Oden and his retainers regardless. As Oden's retainers fled, Kaido apologized to him for Higurashi's interference before shooting Oden in the head. After Oden's death, Kaido attacked and set Oden Castle ablaze before Oden's retainers returned. While threatening Momonosuke, he told the boy that his father was a foolish lord. However, Kaido decided to leave Momonosuke in the burning castle instead of killing him outright. Kaido also managed to gain possession of a road poneglyph, one of the 4 poneglyphs that when deciphered could reveal the location of Laugh Tale. Sometime within the last 4 years, Kaido began collaborating with Warlord of the Sea Don Quixote Doflamingo and the rogue marine scientist Caesar Clown to create an army of artificial Zoan Devil Fruit users, via Smile. From his base on Onigashima, Kaido has occupied Wano country along with his crew and once allied with Wano's shogun, Kurozumai Urakai, until Kaido decided to dispose of him for his new Onigashima project. Decades ago, before the formation of his own crew. Kaido is a merciless, aggressive, and confident warrior who never misses an opportunity to gain an advantage in war. He suffers from bouts of apathy and boredom, harboring a general sense of unconcern for most things, including the very nature of the world and the lives of himself and his subordinates. He keeps a grumpy disposition with little pleasure and excitement in his life and is constantly frowning most of the time. As such, he craves excitement and chaos, wanting to start the largest war in the world because he felt it was too mundane. This recklessness, coupled with his apparent inability to die, has caused Kaido to make attempted suicide his hobby. Kaido has a very positive view on death, thinking that it is the moment a person achieves true glory. As such, he admires those who die fighting until the end, such as Gold Roger, Edward Newgate, and Kojiki Oden. Kaido is determined to build his crew. He actively sought out strong and formidable manpower in the New World to draft into his ranks, from pirates such as the super rookies from the worst generation to the leader of the Mount. Atama thieves, Shuttenmaru. Those who resist or defy his attempts are often sent to slave away at the mines of Udon until they either die or their spirits break and submit to Kaido. Kaido and his fellow Emperor Charlotte Linlin, better known as Big Mom, have been rivals with each other ever since they were crewmates on the Rocks Pirates, and both of them would like nothing more than to kill the other. Kaido threatened to kill Big Mom if she entered his territory and tried to kill Luffy, whom he wanted for himself, and did not appear to care about Linlin, claiming that he owed her a debt. Part of that debt is from her giving him the Uo no Mi model, Seiryu, after the God Valley incident. However, Kaido does not wish to kill Big Mom in an underhanded manner but wants to beat her in equal combat, as when she was captured and brought to Onigashima, he ordered his subordinates to release her from her sea stone chains before he fought her. However, following their battle, Kaido and Big Mom found common ground in their dream of taking over the world, and they temporarily put aside their differences in order to achieve their goal. They now act quite jovially around each other as they drank together and were excited about working together again, although they ultimately still wish to kill each other once they achieve their dream. People often say if it's one-on-one, Kaido will win. On land, sea, and air, among all living things, he is a pirate who is known as the strongest creature. As one of the 4 emperors, Kaido is one of the 4 strongest pirates alive, renowned as the strongest creature. Notably, he has a bounty of belly 4,611,100,000, which is the highest known bounty of any pirate currently alive and 3rd highest in history, surpassed only by the bounties of the late Whitebeard and Gold Roger. As the Beast's pirate serving Urakai, Kaido attempted to take Whitebeard's life, something very few would dare, and subsequently had an encounter with Shanks, along with clashing against Big Mom 2 years later. The 5 elders mentioned Kaido as one of the few people able to stop Blackbeard. His strength was also recognized by his fellow Emperor Big Mom, who could not fathom the idea of Monkey D. Luffy defeating him. Befitting his bulk, Kaido is legendary for his supreme physical power as the strongest creature in the world. He is capable of swinging his kanabo hard enough to send a normal-sized person flying into the distance in one blow, and he broke past the tremendous defensive power of Luffy's gear forth with great ease. He once sunk 9 enormous prison ships single-handedly. Kaido possesses nigh indestructible durability, even without using Busashoku Haki. He took multiple powerful hits from Monkey D. Luffy's Gear 3rd while in his dragon form and transformed back into his human form after being pummeled into the ground, and proceeded to receive a barrage of Gear 4th hits that were even more powerful, yet he felt nothing more than annoyance, received no injuries, and was able to quickly get back up and counter-attack without issue. This all changed once Luffy was able to improve his Busashoku Haki from his training while in Udon, as he is now able to injure Kaido with his newest Gear 3 technique. Kaido also clashed with Big Mom continuously for 1 to 3 days, and emerged without any injuries or signs of fatigue. Model, Seiryu, a mythical Zoan-type devil fruit which allows him to transform into a serpentine eastern dragon. His full beast form is massive, almost half the size of a small town, with extremely durable, blue scales. As a dragon, Kaido is capable of moving through the air by creating special clouds called flame clouds and using them as footholds. These clouds can also be used to lift other objects, to the point of sending an entire island aloft. He can also release devastating blasts of fire from his mouth, which can instantly deal significant damage to, if not fully obliterate, large structures. Aside from fire, Kaido can also release other elements from his mouth, like blasts of lightning by roaring or wind by blowing, the latter in the form of invisible, sharp blade projectiles. Kaido has mastered his devil fruit powers in that he can access some of his draconic abilities without needing to transform, such as generating flame clouds to levitate a Nagashima. Kaido possesses House Hoku Haki, as shown when he clashes with fellow House Hoku Haki user Big Mom. Kaido wields a giant Rocks Pirates Shiki the Golden Lion. Cause him to perform reckoned. Before that era, Shiki was a member of the Rocks Pirates, a powerful crew whose members included 3 future emperors and was notable enough to be known as a feared. Shiki ate the Fuwa no Mi, a paramecia-type devil fruit which allows him to fly, as well as make surrounding non-living matter listless. He has been shown to make several marine vessels and even vast island areas float. He seems to have mastered the use of this fruit, as he has shown a variety of skills which manipulates the surrounding non-living environment in complicated ways, even manipulating it from its simplest components, such as Earth's fragments and snowflakes being used to build up gigantic, elaborate structures that are then used to attack for a variety of purposes. When attacking, Shiki uses the surrounding environment against his enemies, shaping earth or snow into giant lion heads and launching them towards his foes, or even making water flow to drown his opponents in it. As stated, his powers are unable to be used on any living matter other than himself, meaning he cannot touch another person, animal, or plant and make them levitate. Rocks Pirates, Captain John. Of the very powerful pirate crew, the Rocks Pirates, and eventually made a name for himself when he left and formed his own crew. As a zombie, he was nearly invincible, his only weakness being salt. With his corpse being used by Hogback to create a general zombie, he probably was a very powerful and feared pirate. Silver Axe, Rocks Pirates. The Rocks Pirates were a legendary and powerful pirate crew that sailed the seas until their defeat 38 years before the current storyline. They were led by Rocks Xebec and considered to be the most dangerous and strongest pirate crew of their time. They ruled the seas before the rise of Gold Roger and his crew. Much like Ochoku, Silver Axe is another character who was never properly introduced in the One Piece series. According to Sengoku, Silver Axe was a formidable pirate, and after the Rocks crew split up, he got stronger and made a name for himself going forward. It must be noted that Silver Axe is likely the epithet of the pirate and not his real name. Therefore, the name of this pirate is likely still not known to the fans. When it comes to strength, Silver Axe was one of the pirates who made a name for themselves in the New World, which means he must have been significantly stronger than your average pirate. The fact that he survived on a crew filled with monsters indicates that he was no weak person. Ochoku, Rocks Pirates. The Rocks Pirates were a legendary and powerful pirate crew that sailed the seas until their defeat 38 years before the current storyline. They were led by Rocks Xebec and considered to be the most dangerous and strongest pirate crew of their time. They ruled the seas before the rise of Gold Roger and his crew. Ochoku, also known by the name of Wangi, Ochoku was one of the most infamous pirates of his generation, having caught the attention of Sengoku among many other Rocks Pirates members. Almost everything about him remains unknown, which is why he is at the bottom of the list. Eiichiro Oda, One Piece's creator, could possibly reveal more information about Ochoku as we move forward with the story, and as such, he can definitely go higher up the rank in Rock's crew. Interestingly, Ochoku, Wangi, was based on a real-life Chinese pirate, also known as Wangi, who terrorized the seas back in the 16th century. If Ochoku was anything like the person who he's inspired from, he was likely a lethal pirate.